Tonight, I want to take you somewhere most history videos skip. Not to kings, not to battles, not to famous dates, but to the hour that everyone lived through, and almost nobody recorded. We are going to walk through a medieval city after sunset, before electricity, before streetlights, before safety felt automatic, when darkness was not a mood, it was a system. You'll hear what replaced light, lanterns, footsteps, gutters, dogs, church bells, and the quiet work of people who stayed awake, so others could sleep. This is not a story of glory. It is a story of endurance, of ordinary nights, ordinary fear, ordinary warmth. Let your eyes rest, let your breathing slow, and let the old city carry you. One street at a time. Welcome to the night shift of history. Picture a city that has no streetlights, no neon, no glowing windows that stay awake, only the sun. And then, the sun goes away. In the daytime, the city feels noisy and crowded. You hear carts, you hear hammers, you hear voices in the market. You smell bread, you smell smoke, you smell sweat. People move like water. They push forward, they argue, they trade, they live. Then evening arrives, quietly, not like a song, more like a door closing. The shadows lengthen. The corners grow deeper, faces become harder to read. The last sunlight slips away. One rooftop at a time, one street at a time, until the whole place becomes a bowl of darkness. If you lived here, you would learn a simple rule. Night changes everything. A street that felt ordinary at noon can feel dangerous after dusk. Not because the stones have changed, not because the buildings have moved, but because your eyes cannot hold the full shape of the world anymore. Darkness steals distance. Darkness steals detail. Darkness steals certainty. People prepare for a night the way sailors prepare for weather. They do not assume it will be kind. They do not assume it will be safe. Shops close early. Stalls pack away their goods. Doors bolt. Bars slide into place. Curtains fall. The city begins to fold inward. Inside homes, fire becomes the center of the universe. A small flame. A small circle of light. Everything outside that circle becomes unknown again. Candles exist, but candles cost money. Oil lamps exist, but oil costs money too. Most people do not waste light. They ration it. They guard it. They use it like food. One candle can mean 1 hour, sometimes less. One lamp can mean a one corner of a room, not the whole room, just enough to keep the dark from swallowing faces. The night is dim, even indoors, in a poor home. The light is weak. Smoke hangs under the beams. Shadows dance on walls. The air smells of ash, and of bodies, and of damp clothing that never fully dries. People sit close together, not for romance, for warmth, for safety, for habit. Children grow sleepy early. Their day started early. Their day was heavy. Their eyes close quickly when the fire is low. Adults try to stretch the evening, because the night is the only time that is not stolen by labour. But they cannot stretch it far. Not when light is expensive. Not when exhaustion is always waiting. Outside, the city shifts into a different kind of work, because even without electricity, even without modern noise, a city does not truly sleep. Someone must keep watch. There are night guards, sometimes paid by the town, sometimes hired by a guild, sometimes just men doing a duty that rotates among households. They walk slowly. They carry lanterns or torches. They carry staffs. They carry keys. They carry the weight of responsibility. Their job is not to fight every danger. Their job is to notice. Their job is to warn. Their job is to make presence visible. They call out the hours, not with precision, but with ritual. They sing a simple line. They shout a phrase. They strike a wooden rattle. They let the city know someone is awake. It is not only for safety, it is also for comfort. A sleeping city is less afraid when it knows. A human voice still moves through the dark. But the guard also fears. He is not a hero. He is a body in a street, sacked with limited light, with limited help. He knows where the alleyway's narrow. He knows where a doorway hides a shadow. He knows where the drunk men gather. He knows where the river smells worse at night. He knows where the dogs fight over scraps. Dogs are part of the night. Stray dogs, half-owned dogs, dogs that know the streets better than any person. They prowl, they bark, they sniff at trash, they chase rats. They sometimes chase people too. Rats are part of the night. They run along walls, they slip into stores, they chew sacks, they chew rope, they chew wood. They do not fear darkness. Darkness belongs to them, so do fires. Fire is the greatest fear of the night. Not thieves, not even sickness. Fire, because a medieval city is built to burn. Timber, thatch, dry beams, close roofs, narrow streets. A single spark can climb like an animal. It can leap from house to house. It can race faster than people can run. That is why people fear candles. That is why they fear open flames. That is why they cover embers. That is why they keep water nearby. That is why the night guard listens for a different sound. The sound of panic. The sound of shouting. The sound of a bell that does not ring for prayer, but rings for danger. In some places, there are watchtowers. In some places, there are bells meant only for fire. In some places, there are buckets stored in rows, like a line of small promises, but a promise does not stop a flame. So the night is always tense, even when it is quiet. Now imagine you're walking. You're not a guard. You're an ordinary person. You are maybe you're a midwife, called to a birth. Maybe you are a messenger, carrying a note that cannot wait. Maybe you are a worker leaving a tavern, a little too warm, a little too brave. You step into the street. The air is colder now. The stones are damp. The sound of your shoes is loud, louder than it should be, because the city is holding its breath. You see light in small places, a candle behind a shutter crack, a lantern swinging at a corner, a glow from an inn doorway. These lights do not make the street bright. They only make the dark look deeper beyond them. You learn to keep close to walls. You learn to avoid the middle of the street. Not because the middle is cursed, but because you feel exposed there, like a figure on a stage, and the audience is invisible. You listen for footsteps. You listen for laughter. You listen for any sound that suggests you are not alone. Just sometimes you will hear the guard. His call is a relief, not because it guarantees safety, but because it proves. Another human mind is still awake in the dark. Sometimes you will hear nothing. That silence can be heavier than stone. In that silence, small fears grow large. A creak becomes a threat. A rustle becomes a person. A shadow becomes a hand. Most nights, nothing happens. Most nights, people simply make it home, bolt the door, exhale, and let sleep take them. But the city remembers the nights when something did happen. A robbery, a murder, a fire, a scream that did not get answered in time. Those stories travel, quietly, like smoke. They make everyone more careful. They make everyone faster to lock up. faster to trust only their own doorway. So night shapes behaviour. It shapes time too, without electric light. Yet the night is longer, not in hours, in feeling. A winter night can feel endless. The sun sets early, the cold comes in, the fire eats the wood runs out, the room shrinks, people huddle closer, they speak less, they sleep more. Not because they want to dream, but because sleep costs nothing. In summer, the night can be softer. Windows may open, air may move, but the dark is still dark. The city is still blind past a few steps. So the night becomes a separate world, a second city, a city of whispers, a city of sparks, a city of careful movement. And yet, there is beauty in it too. When the wind calms, when the streets empty, when the sky is clear, you can see stars, so many stars, more than a modern person ever sees. The Milky Way can look like spilled flour across the heavens. In those moments, the city feels small. The fear feels smaller. The night feels like a blanket instead of a threat. But then a dog barks, or a door slams, or a cough echoes in a narrow lane, and the human mind returns to its old work, watching, guessing, preparing. This is the night shift of history. It is not romantic, it is not cinematic, it is practical, it is physical, it is psychological. It is the slow closing of shutters. It is the careful covering of embers. It is the guard's lantern. It is the quiet prayer before sleep. It is the sound of a bucket scraping stone. It is the small relief of reaching your own door. And then, inside, the fire dims, the last light shrinks. The room becomes a cave again. Breathing slows, muscles release, thoughts soften. Another day will come, but not yet. For now. The city lies in darkness, and the darkness lies back. In the day, danger feels visible. You can see a stranger coming. You can see smoke rising. You can see the shape of a problem before it reaches you. At night, danger becomes a feeling first, a suspicion, a change in sound, a shift in air. That is why the night belongs to specialists. Not famous specialists, not people with titles that survive in history books, but workers of the dark. People who live inside the hours when most others disappear behind doors. They do not call themselves heroes. They do not wear uniforms that shine. They are simply there, moving through the dark, making the dark less powerful. The first are the watchmen. A watchman's lantern is not a modern beam. It does not cut through the night like a knife. It is a weak circle. A small trembling sun, it shows a few steps. It shows a face if it comes close. It shows a wall. It shows a puddle. It does not show what waits beyond. And so a watchman learns to use his ears. He learns to hear the difference between footsteps and rats, between a drunk man stumbling and a thief moving carefully, between laughter and trouble, between a normal creak and the crackle that means fire has found wood. He walks a route. He knows every corner. He knows which doors belong to which families. He knows which houses have babies, which ones have old men who cough through the night, which ones have fights, which ones have dogs that bite. He carries a staff. It is not a weapon in the heroic sense, it is a tool. It taps the stones, it tests a doorway. It can push a person back. It can make noise. Noise is important. Noise is proof of presence. Sometimes he also carries a rattle, a wooden clacker, a simple instrument that says one thing: I am here, I am awake, I am watching, in some towns. The watchman calls the hours. He may shout the time. He may announce the weather. He may call out that all is well. All is well. It is a strange phrase in a world when nothing is fully well, but it calms people. It gives shapes to the night. It divides the darkness into smaller pieces. It tells sleepers that time is still moving, that the night is being counted, that it will end. A watchman's job sounds simple, but the night makes every job heavier. A watchman cannot run far. If he runs, his lantern swings wildly, his light becomes chaos. If his light becomes chaos, he becomes blind. He must move steady, he must stay alert, he must stay calm. Even when his stomach tightens, even when he thinks he saw movement, nay, even when he hears a whisper and cannot find its source. Sometimes he's alone, sometimes there are two. Sometimes there is a patrol. The richer the town, the more organized the night. But most places are not rich. Most places rely on habit and on the stubborn fact that someone has to do it. Then there are the gatekeepers. A city gate is not just a hole in a wall, it is a throat, a narrow passage that can close, and when it closes, the city becomes a sealed container. During the day, people flow through gates, merchants, farmers, travellers, animals, carts, noise, dust. At night, the gate becomes a hard line. Closing the gate is a ritual. Bolts slide, chains drop, bars thud into place. Wood meets stone, then silence. A gatekeeper stays near that silence. He may sit in a small room, he may stand on a platform, he may pace. Either he may do all three. He listens for knocking, he listens for shouting, he listens for the desperate voice of someone who arrived too late. Sometimes a person outside begs to be let in. Sometimes that person is harmless. A traveller delayed, a messenger, a frightened woman, a man who swears he is honest. Sometimes that person is not harmless. A gatekeeper cannot know for sure. That is the point. At night, you cannot know. So the gatekeeper learns to be cruel in small ways, not from hatred, from arithmetic. If the gate opens, danger can enter. If danger enters, the whole town suffers. So the gate stays shut. The person outside learns a different lesson. Night is not gentle. In many places, the rule is simple. No entry after dark. No exceptions. Exceptions are how tragedies begin. Then there are the lamplighters. Though in earlier centuries, lamplighters are rare, because lamps are rare. But where there are oil lanterns hung in public places, someone must tend them. A lantern that burns too low will go out. A lantern that burns too high can set wood on fire. A lantern that is left unclean will smoke. A lantern that smokes will stain. A lantern that stains will make the air worse. So the lamplighter becomes a small technician of flame. He carries oil, he carries wick, he carries a ladder, he carries a hook, he carries the smell of fuel on his hands. He walks slowly, he does not rush, because spilled oil is wasted money, and wasted money is danger, because the town will buy less oil next time, and the night will be darker. Then there are the night cleaners. You rarely see them in stories, because stories prefer kings and battles and speeches. But a city produces waste every hour. In the day, people throw it away. In the night, someone must move it, or the morning will begin in filth. In some places, waste is carried to pits outside walls. In some places, it is dumped into rivers. In some places, it sits in alleys until someone decides it is too much. A night cleaner works quietly. He does not want attention. He moves barrels. He scrapes. He shovels. He sweeps. He is surrounded by smells that stick to clothing and skin. His reward is not praise. His reward is that the city does not choke on itself. There are also bakers. Yes, bakers. Because bread must be ready in the morning, and bread takes time. A baker's night begins when other nights end. He lights the oven. He kneads dough. He waits. He sweats. He listens to the crackle of fire. He watches heat the way a sailor watches waves. A bakery at night is a warm cave. It smells better than most places in the city. But it is still hard work. Heavy work. Repetitive work. And if the baker sleeps, the bread fails. If the bread fails, the morning is worse for everyone. There are also blacksmiths who work late. Not always, but sometimes. When a tool breaks, when a horseshoe is needed, when a cart must be repaired before dawn, the smith may work by firelight. Hammering becomes a night sound, a deep metallic rhythm like a heartbeat from inside a building. There are midwives. They do not choose the hour. A birth does not schedule itself politely. A birth arrives when it arrives. Many births begin at night, because the body has its own timing, and night is when the household is finally still enough to notice changes. A midwife walks through dark streets. She carries cloth. She carries herbs. She carries water. She carries a calm voice. She carries experience. She knows the night is dangerous. But she also knows the inside of a house can be more dangerous, because childbirth can turn quickly, and when it turns, there is no time for fear. So she moves, steady, quiet, focused, in a way. She's a watchman too, watching a different threshold between one life and another. All these people create a hidden system, a system that keeps a city from falling apart while it sleeps. They do not stop crime, they do not stop fire, they do not stop sickness, but they reduce the chaos, they narrow it, they slow it down. And slowing down disaster is sometimes the same thing as saving lives. When you listen closely, you can almost hear this system working. A rattle in the distance, a gate chain shifting, a lantern hiss, a broom scraping stone, the low roar of an oven, a hammer striking iron, footsteps, then silence again. The city sleeps on top of these sounds. It does not thank them. It does not even notice them most nights. But they are there, holding the dark in place, keeping it from becoming something worse. And as you listen, your mind can begin to drift, because the rhythm is steady, because the sounds are simple, because the night work is repetitive, because repetition is calming. The night is long, but it is also structured, and structure in the dark can feel like safety. So you breathe slowly, and you let the city's hidden workers continue, one step at a time, one lantern at a time, one quiet duty at a time in a world without electricity. Sound becomes a map. Sound becomes a warning. Sound becomes a kind of light in the daytime. Sound is everywhere. It piles up, it blends together, it hides inside itself. A market can swallow a scream. A crowd can swallow a footstep. Noise can make danger invisible. At night, the city thins out. The air opens, the streets empty, and every small sound becomes larger. A door latch clicks, and it feels like a message. A bucket scrapes stone, and it feels like movement. A cough echoes, and it feels like someone is close, even if they are not. People learn this quickly, if they live long enough. They learn what belongs and what does not. They learn the normal night sounds. They learn them the way you learn the voice of your own house. A dog barks. That can be normal. Dogs bark at shadows. Dogs bark at cats. Dogs bark at the wind. But if dogs bark in a pattern, if they bark as if they are moving, if the barking travels down a street, people notice. A cat yowls. That can be normal too. Cats fight, cats hunt, cats climb fences and fall. But if the cat screams and then stops, sudden, complete, people notice. A rat scratches. That is normal. Rats live in walls. Rats live under floors. Rats live in ceilings. But if you hear a heavier scrape, like wood shifting, like a crate being dragged, like a shutter being tested, you notice. Night makes everyone into a listener. That is why the watchman is not the only one watching. Behind shutters, people listen with one ear open. They sleep lightly, or they pretend to sleep. They learn to wake without moving. They learn to hold their breath for one moment, just to make the outside clearer. Because the city is quiet enough now that you can tell where a sound is coming from. Sometimes you can even tell who it is. A drunk man has a certain rhythm, a stumble, a scrape, a laugh that spills out, a pause to breathe, then another step, then a curse, then a cough. A thief has a different rhythm. The steps are careful, the pauses are longer, the movement is close to walls, the sound is small, almost polite. A messenger, if he is honest, moves fast. His steps are urgent. His breathing is loud. His knocking is hard. He does not hide. A person who wants to hide knocks softly, or does not knock at all. So the night teaches the body. It teaches instinct. It also teaches fear, but not the loud kind. Not panic. It teaches the slow fear, the steady fear, the fear that makes you double-check your bar. The fear that makes you keep a bucket of water near the hearth. The fear that makes you put your shoes near your bed, so you can run if you must. Fire is the sound everyone fears most, not the big roar. That is too late. The first sound, the small sound, the dry crackle, the thin popping, the whisper of flame-eating straw, the sigh of heat rising in a wall. A person who has lived through a fire never forgets that sound. Because a medieval fire does not behave like a small candle flame, it behaves like hunger. It climbs, it spreads, it looks for air. And a medieval city has air everywhere. Between beams, under roofs, through narrow lanes, up stairways, into attics filled with dry things, into storage rooms filled with dry things, into market stalls filled with dry things. So people respect fire. They fear it. They also depend on it. That is the terrible balance. In the night, a family may cover the embers, they may bank them with ash, they may keep the heat alive, but they must keep it quiet. They must keep it contained. They must keep it from becoming hungry. Some households do it well, some do it badly. Sometimes a spark escapes, sometimes the wind changes. Sometimes a sleeping person shifts. Sometimes a child wakes and stirs a coal. Then the night changes. One scream can do it. Not a scream of fear, a scream of warning. Fire. Fire. The word is short, the word is sharp, the word travels fast. People wake instantly, not slowly, not like a normal morning. They wake like animals. Hands reach for buckets. Feet find shoes. Doors burst open. The street fills in seconds. Lanterns appear. Torches appear. Shadows jump. The watchman runs now. He runs because the rules have changed. The lantern can swing. It does not matter. The city is already blind. The city is already burning. If the fire is small, the neighbours can beat it down. They throw water, they throw sand, they rip thatch away. They smash a window to pull smoke out, they risk their hands, they risk their faces, because if they do not, their own roof is next. If the fire is large, People change their goal. They do not try to save the burning house. They try to save the next one. They pull belongings into the street. They drag chests. They drag sacks. They drag children. They drag the old. They carry what they can. They leave what they must. The night becomes noise. The night becomes chaos. The night becomes light. A terrible light. But most nights do not become that. And most nights remain quiet, and in that quiet, there is another sound, a softer sound. Prayer, not always spoken aloud. Sometimes only whispered, sometimes only thought. A person whispers a simple line. Please let the night pass. Please let the baby breathe. Please let the sickness stay away. Please let the roof hold. Please let the door stay closed. This is not dramatic faith. It is practical faith. It is the kind of faith that fits into a dark room. There is also the sound of routine. A spoon on a bowl, a loom creaking, a needle pulling thread, a child turning in sleep, a man sighing, a woman adding one stick to the fire, slowly, carefully. Routine is a lullaby too, because routine says, this night is like the last night, and that the last night ended, so this night will end too. Sometimes someone tells a story, not a loud story, not a performance, a slow story, a story that everyone already knows, a saint, a beast, a traveller, a moral, a joke that is not very funny but familiar. The words are not important, the rhythm is important. The voices soften, the room warms, the mind loosens. Outside, the watchman keeps walking, the gatekeeper keeps listening, the baker keeps feeding the oven, the cleaner keeps scraping stone. The city breathes. One slow breath, then another, and as you listen to these sounds, your mind begins to accept the dark. Because the dark is not empty. It is filled with small signals. It is filled with steady work. It is filled with repeated patterns, and patterns are soothing. So you imagine the street again, the narrow lane, the closed shutters, the weak lantern light, the distant rattle. Everything is in its place. Everything is moving slowly. Nothing is asking you to act. You can rest. You can let your eyes close. You can let the sounds become softer, like rain, like wind, like a city that has learned how to sleep without light, in a city without electricity. Light is not a background. Light is a decision. In the modern world, you press a switch, the room obeys, you barely notice it. You do not count the minutes of brightness. You do not taste the cost. In the old city, you taste it. You smell it. You feel it in your pocket. You feel it in your patience. A flame is not free. A candle is not just a candle. It is labour. It is material. It is trade. It is storage. It is risk. And it is time. Because light does something strange to the human mind. It makes time feel open. It makes you think you can do more. Chasti. It makes you forget the night is dangerous. It makes you forget the dark has teeth. So people ration light the way they ration food. They do not say it with big words. They do not hold meetings about it. They do not write rules on paper. They just live it. They learn it in the body. They learn it the first time a candle runs out too early. They learn it the first time they spill oil. They learn it the first time a spark bites a curtain. They learn it the first time smoke fills a room and someone coughs and cannot stop. So they become careful. A poor family might have one candle, maybe two, sometimes none. If they have one. They do not burn it for comfort. They burn it for a purpose. They burn it to patch clothing. They burn it to cut a splinter out of a finger. They burn it to check a child's fevered face. They burn it to read a letter. If someone in the house can read, they burn it to count money. They burn it to measure grain. They burn it to find a needle. They burn it like a tool, not like decoration. When the candle is lit, the room becomes a small island. The walls appear. The floor appears. Faces appear. But the island is not large. The corners are still dark. The ceiling still holds shadows. The air still holds smoke. A flame does not remove the night. It only makes a small hole in it, and that hole can close fast, because a candle shortens quietly, constantly, like sand falling in a glass. You watch it without meaning to. The mind always notices the shrink. That is why candlelight can feel anxious, even when it is warm, even when it is beautiful, because it is always dying. Oil lamps are similar, but also different. The oil lamp can last longer if you have enough oil, if the wick behaves, if the lamp does not leak. But oil has its own problems. Oil smells, oil spills, oil stains. Oil catches fire in a way that can spread faster than you expect. So oil is also treated with respect, and with fear in many places. Light becomes a sign of class. A rich home has more candles. A rich home has better candles. Beeswax is clean. Beeswax burns brighter. Beeswax smells sweeter. Beeswax drips less. Tallow is cheaper. Tallow is made from animal fat. Tallow smokes more. Tallow smells heavier. Tallow can feel greasy in the air. Tallow can leave soot. You can sometimes tell a neighbourhood by the scent of its light. In richer streets, the air feels clearer at night. The glow looks steadier. The windows look warmer in poorer streets. Light is weaker. Your smoke is thicker. The glow flickers as if it is tired. So the night has layers, not only of darkness, but of quality. And a person can feel it without being told. A candle can also be a message. In a city without streetlights, a lit window stands out, even if it is behind shutters, even if it is only a thin line. A lit window can say someone is awake. A lit window can say someone has money. A lit window can say someone is meeting someone. A lit window can say someone is sick, or someone is giving birth, or someone is dying. So people hide their light. They do not want to advertise. They cover windows, they close shutters, they hang cloth, they block cracks. They want the light for themselves, not for the street. Because the street is not a friend at night. The street is an audience. Sometimes the street is a predator. So the light stays inside, quiet, controlled, and still, even inside. The flame is watched. Because flame is not just light. Flame is danger. The roof above is often wood. The beams are often dry. The walls are often lined with straw, or cloth, or dust. The floor may be scattered with straw too. One careless move can turn a room into a torch. So families develop rituals. They place the candle in a heavy holder. They keep it away from curtains. They keep it away from bedding. Keep it away from children. They teach children early. Do not touch. Do not play. Do not lean close. A child learns fear of fire the way a child learns fear of deep water. Not by lectures. By watching adults behave. Adults move differently near flame. Hands slow down. Voices soften. Bodies lean with care. So even the air feels different when a candle is lit. Because everyone is thinking about what could happen if it falls. This is why night work can feel slow, not only because people are tired, but because they cannot rush with fire. A baker learns this first. A baker lives with flame all night. He knows fire can feed you, and fire can erase you. so he becomes almost spiritual about it. He learns the moods of the heat, he learns the sound of an oven breathing, he learns the colour of flame, he learns the smell of dough when it is ready, he learns the moment before smoke becomes danger. He uses light as a tool, he uses it with discipline. A blacksmith does the same. A forge is bright. It is small, artificial sun. At night, that sun can be seen from outside, a red pulse behind a door, a glow through cracks, sparks like fireflies. See ya, a forge says. Someone is awake. Someone is working. Someone is strong. Someone has fuel. Sometimes that glow feels comforting, because it means the city is not fully asleep. Sometimes it feels suspicious, because night work is unusual, and unusual draws attention, so the smith may cover windows, or angle his fire, or keep his door tight. Light is always negotiation. Then there are the people who sell light. They sell candles, they sell oil, they sell wicks, they sell holders, they sell flint, they sell tinder. They are part of a small economy that modern people never notice. A candle seller in a medieval city is not a romantic figure, not a person in a painting holding a tray of glowing sticks. He is a merchant. He measures, he counts, he bargains. He deals with storage, he deals with spoilage, he deals with supply. He deals with animals too, because tallow must come from somewhere, because wax must come from somewhere. Bees must be tended, hives must be protected, wax must be rendered, impurities must be removed. This is work. It smells. It takes time. It takes skill. So the candle that burns for 1 hour has a long shadow behind it. It holds the work of many hands. It holds the life of an animal, or the labour of bees. It holds trade routes. It holds markets. It holds taxes. And it holds risk, because a candle maker can burn down his own shop if he is careless. So even the making of light is dangerous. Now think about a very poor household again. They might not buy candles often. They might make them. They might save fat scraps. They might render them. They might dip wicks. They might reuse old stubs. They might melt leftovers into a new shape. Nothing is wasted. They might even pick up fallen wax in a church as tiny drips, tiny crumbs, because a tiny crumb can become a minute of light. This sounds extreme, but in a world where light is money, nothing looks silly. A minute of light can mean one more stitch in a coat, one more patch on a shoe, one more repair that keeps a child warm. So people become collectors of brightness. Then there is the social side of light. When people gather at night, they gather around light. A tavern has light. Because a tavern sells warmth, a tavern sells community, a tavern sells time after labour. So a tavern invests in flame. It has candles, it has lamps, it has a hearth that burns brighter than a peasant home. That is part of the attraction. The tavern becomes a soft island in the city's dark ocean. Men sit near the fire, they drink, they talk, they laugh, they gamble, they argue, but the light also makes them visible. A thief can see them. A watchman can see them. Trouble can find them easier. So the tavern is both comfort and risk. Many fights begin in the glow of a candle, because light extends the day. An extended day can extend conflict in a church. Light has another meaning. Candles are offerings. Candles are prayers made physical. A candle in a church is not only illumination, it is devotion. It is a message to heaven. So people might spend money on a church candle, even when they do not spend money on a home candle. Because the candle is not just light. It is hope. It is bargaining. It is also reputation. A person who gives a candle shows piety. A person who gives many candles shows wealth. So the church glows in a way many homes never do, at night. If you pass near a church, you might see a warm shimmer, you might smell wax. It feels like another world, a world where light is allowed to be wasted, because the waste is holy. Then you go home, and you close your door, and you remember your own candle is short, so you blow it out. That moment, the blowing out, is another ritual. A family watches the flame shrink, then disappear. Smoke rises, a thin ribbon. The room darkens instantly. That instant teaches you something. Light was not natural, light was borrowed, light was a choice. Now it is gone. And the room returns to its older shape. The shape of listening. The shape of waiting. The shape of sleep. People lie down earlier because of this. Oh, not always because they are sleepy, but because being awake in the dark is uncomfortable. In the dark, you cannot do much. You can think. You can worry. You can remember. Many people do not want those things, so they sleep. Sleep is free. Sleep also protects you from the cold in a strange way. Because sleep lets time pass without your awareness. And cold is partly a matter of awareness. You wake. And the night has moved forward, even if you did nothing. So the candle economy shapes the schedule of an entire society. It shapes when people read. It shapes when people write. It shapes when people talk. It shapes when people fight. It shapes when people pray. It shapes romance too, because darkness is privacy, but also risk. A young couple might meet in a dim place, a corner, a doorway, a stairwell, a courtyard. They might share a brief moment without light, because light would expose them. So darkness can hide tenderness, but darkness can also hide violence. That is why the night is always complicated. Not purely frightening, not purely peaceful. It depends on where you stand. It depends on what you can afford. It depends on who is awake. Now imagine the city as a whole. From above, you would see very few lights, tiny points scattered, like stars fallen to earth. A tavern, a church, a guard's lantern, a baker's oven glow, a rich home with a candle still burning. Everything else is black. And the black is not empty. It is full of people breathing, full of people sleeping, full of people listening, full of people hoping the candle they do not have is not needed tonight. Because there is another rule of candle life. You never want to need light suddenly. If you need it suddenly, it usually means something's wrong. It means a child is sick. It means blood is on the floor. It means a roof is leaking. It means someone is outside your door. It means smoke is in the air. So when a candle is lit late at night, it can feel like an alarm, even if no one says so. Neighbours might notice the glow through a crack. They might wonder. They might whisper. They might pray. Then, slowly, the glow disappears again, and the city returns to darkness. A darkness that is not simply lack of light. A darkness that is shaped by economics, by habit, by fear, by faith, and by one small flame that people protect, like life itself. Because in a city before electricity, late is life's smaller cousin, fragile, brief, expensive, and strangely soothing to watch. Because as the candle burns down, the mind can also burn down, thoughts can shorten, worries can shrink, till the flame becomes a metronome, steady, soft, predictable, and then, with one breath, it becomes nothing. And you drift into sleep, into the long old night. At night, The city seems quieter, but it is not cleaner. In the daytime, people make mess without thinking, without shame, because everyone is busy, because everyone is tired, because the city is not designed to be gentle. Food scraps fall, mud is tracked inside, ash spills, animals leave what animals leave, people spit, people cough, people throw water from washing, people empty pots. In many places, a street is not a clean line. It is a working surface. It is a shared floor. It is where life leaks. And then night comes, and the leaks remain, if nothing is done. Morning will arrive into rot, into stink, into sickness, into a city that feels like it is drowning in itself. So the night has another workforce. A workforce that does not get poems. A workforce that does not get statues. A workforce that is remembered only through the smell they removed and the disease they delayed. They are the night cleaners, the waste carriers, the people who move the hidden river, because waste has to go somewhere. A medieval city is a body. It eats, it drinks, it burns fuel, it produces heat, it produces smoke, it produces leftovers, it produces excrement, constantly. The question is simple. Where does the city put it? Some places have rules, some do not. Some places have drains, some have open gutters, some have channels cut into stone. Many have nothing but slope and gravity and rain. So the city relies on water. Water is the oldest cleaning machine. Water can carry things away. Water can dissolve. Water can hide. Water can spread. And that last part is the danger. Because water that carries waste can also carry sickness. But medieval people do not know germs. Not the way we do. They know patterns, they know smells, they know when fever comes more often, they know when children die more often, they know when a neighbourhood becomes cursed in reputation. They may blame the air, they may blame sin, they may blame stars, they may blame strangers. Sometimes they are wrong, sometimes they are close, in a strange accidental way, because smell does matter, and standing water does matter. And crowded rooms do matter. So the city develops habits, not perfect systems. Habits. One habit is the gutter. A narrow channel runs along the street. It collects rain. It collects spilled water. It collects everything people throw out. It becomes a small moving line when the weather's kind, and a stagnant line when the weather is not. In dry weeks, that gutter becomes thick, dark, slow. It smells. It attracts flies. It attracts dogs. It attracts rats. It becomes a feeding place for things that should not feed there. In wet weeks, the gutter becomes fast. It looks cleaner. It feels cleaner. People relax, but the filth does not vanish. It simply travels. It travels to lower streets. It travels to rivers. It travels to wells. It travels to the edge of town or into someone else's doorway. So cleanliness becomes uneven, like everything else. Higher ground is often cleaner, lower ground suffers. The poor often live where water settles, where air is heavier, where walls stay damp, so poverty has a smell. And the smell is not only sweat, it is the environment itself. At night, when the street's empty, you can hear the gutter more clearly. You can hear water trickle, or you can hear the slow, thick sound of almost water. You can hear it sliding around stones. You can hear it catching on debris. It is the city's hidden river, moving quietly in darkness. Now imagine the inside of a house. Many homes do not have private toilets. Some have a latrine, some have a chamber pot, some have a bucket, some have nothing but a corner, or a shared yard, or a shared pit. A chamber pot is a simple object, but it carries a heavy social weight, because someone must empty it. In richer homes, servants do it. In poorer homes, the family does it. Often women, often children, often whoever has time, which means whoever is least protected. The emptying can happen in the morning, or it can happen at night. Night is tempting, because fewer eyes are watching. But night is also risky, because you can slip, you can spill, you can step into something you cannot see. You can meet someone in the dark who should not be met, so people choose carefully. In some cities, there are rules. Do not throw waste from windows, or if you do, warn first. But rules and reality are not the same thing. You may have heard a phrase. In old stories, someone shouts a warning before dumping a pot. It sounds almost funny now, but it was not meant to be funny. It was meant to prevent injury and anger and conflict. Because waste falling from a height is not just disgusting. It can harm, it can blind, it can infect, it can humiliate. And humiliation is dangerous in a tight community, in a narrow street, where everyone must keep living next to everyone else. So the night helps again. The night hides mistakes. The night hides shame. The night also becomes the time for the night soil men. Night soil is a soft name for a hard reality. Human waste is valuable, not as something you want near you, but as fertilizer. Fields need nutrients. Cities produce waste. Someone connects the two. That someone is usually poor, usually outcast, usually stuck in a job that others will not touch. He carries buckets, he carries barrels, he carries the smell of his work on his skin. Even after washing, even after sleep, he walks through the city when most people are behind doors. He knocks, or he does not knock. He collects, he loads, he moves. His route is steady, repetitive, like the watchman's route, but less respected. People do not want to see him. People do not want to speak to him. People want his service without acknowledging his existence. So he becomes part of the night, like rats, like gutters, like fog. Sometimes the night soil work is organised, a contract, a schedule, a fee. Sometimes it is not. Sometimes it is informal. Sometimes it is desperate. A family may pay in coins, or in food, or in favours, or not at all, if they cannot. If the collector is forced to take what he can get. If the city is collapsing into hunger, so the waste economy links to the candle economy. Everything links, because everything is survival. There are also the street sweepers. In some towns, a guild might pay for them. In some towns, the church might sponsor them. In some towns, a landlord might do it to protect property value. In most places, it is irregular, but it exists. The sweeper moves slowly, with a broom made of twigs, or a flat wooden scraper, or both. He pushes debris into piles. He drags piles into carts. He clears space, so the street can function again. His work is quiet, which makes it feel like sleep. Scrape, pause, scrape, pause. The sound is steady, like waves on stone. If you are awake behind a shutter, you might hear it, and feel oddly comforted, because a cleaner at night means the morning will be easier. It means someone is maintaining the world. That is a calming idea. Then there is water itself. Water is heavy. Water is constant. Water is always needed. A city without plumbing relies on carriers. People carry water from wells, from fountains, from rivers, where from cisterns. They carry it in buckets, in barrels, on yokes across the shoulders. This is daytime work mostly, but not always. In hot seasons, water is carried late, when the air is cooler, when lines are shorter, when the well feels less crowded. In emergency, water is carried at night, especially for fire, so a city at night can suddenly fill with the sound of buckets. Metal rings, wood creaks, footsteps hurry, water sloshes, a bucket line forms. From a well to a burning house, people pass water hand to hand like a living machine. They do it without thinking, because the alternative is ash. In those moments, the hidden river becomes visible, clean water, dirty water, all of it moving, all of it needed. Now imagine the river outside the city. Many medieval cities sit near water, because water is trade, water is drinking. Water is defense, water is waste removal. At night, the river looks black, smooth, quiet. It reflects very little, unless the moon is out, or unless a torch leans over it. The river is soothing to watch, but it is also frightening, because bodies can vanish in it, because evidence can vanish in it, because disease can travel from it, because it can flood. So the river is both friend and threat, like fire, like night. This is the pattern against the medieval world is full of things that keep you alive and can kill you in the same breath. So people learn caution, not as philosophy, as muscle memory. They learn where to step. They learn what to touch. They learn what to avoid. They learn that cleanliness is not a permanent state. It is a temporary victory, won through daily effort. Oh, and daily effort is the only kind of victory most people ever get. In the late hours, as the city quiets, the waste carriers finish their routes, the sweepers finish their streets, the gutters keep flowing, slowly or not. The smell in the air shifts. Sometimes it gets better, sometimes it gets worse, sometimes fog rolls in, and the fog holds the smell, like cloth holds smoke. Sometimes wind rises, and the wind pulls the smell away. Like a hand sweeping a table, people notice, even in sleep. Because smell enters dreams. A sour smell can make a dream uneasy. A smoky smell can make a dream sharp. A clean cold smell can make a dream softer. So the city's hidden river shapes the mind, even when the mind is not fully awake. Now, if you are listening to this, slowly, in a low voice, you can imagine the street. You can imagine the gutter lean. You can imagine the broom scraping. You can imagine a cartwheel turning slowly. You can imagine a bucket being lifted. You can imagine a door closing gently after a collection. The city is doing maintenance, like a body healing while asleep. That thought can relax you, because it suggests that, even in a harsh world, someone is always putting things back into place. Not perfectly, not forever, but enough. Enough for morning to arrive, enough for bread to bake, enough for work to begin again, and you do not have to do anything. You only have to listen. You only have to breathe, slowly, and let the hidden river keep moving, away from you, down the street, into the dark, where it belongs. And as it moves, your thoughts can move too, away from effort, away from worry, downstream, into sleep. When the sun goes down, most doors close, but some doors stay open. A tavern is one of them, in a city without electricity. A tavern is not just a place to drink. It is a lamp. It is a hearth. It is a social engine. It is a shelter from the dark. You can feel it before you reach the door. You smell smoke. You smell yeast. You smell spilled ale. You smell cooked fat if there is food. You hear voices. You hear laughter. You hear a mug hit wood. You hear a bench scrape stone. The sound leaks out like heat and heat is a promise. For people who live in cold rooms, for people who ration candles, for people who spend all day in wind and mud, a tavern offers something simple. Warmth without careful counting, light without fear of wasting it. Noise that drowns out the quiet worries of the night, so people come. Not everyone. Says the Stet. Not always. Some cannot afford it. Some avoid it. Some fear it. Some are too tired. But enough come that the tavern becomes a night landmark. A bright island in a dark street. Inside. The room is crowded. It is not crowded like a modern bar, with personal space and polite distances. It is crowded like survival. Bodies close. Elbows touch. Breath mixes. The floor is sticky. The air is thick. The ceiling holds smoke that never fully leaves. A fire burns, not necessarily large, but steady. Candles stand on tables, or oil lamps hang from beams. The light is uneven. Faces look different from one angle to another. Shadows make expressions harder to judge, which is dangerous and also freeing. Because darkness inside a tavern is still darkness. It just has a glow. People sit in clusters, groups formed by work, by neighbourhood, eaten by family, by guild, by habit. A man sits with men he has known since childhood. They talk without needing words. They drink in a rhythm that matches their exhaustion. A worker sits alone at first. Then someone recognises him. Then he is pulled into noise. A traveller sits near the wall, watching, listening, being careful. A woman might be there too, depending on the town, depending on the rules, depending on the hour, depending on whether she's working, serving, selling, or simply present as someone's wife, someone's sister, someone's companion. Taverns are not the same everywhere. Some are rough, some are almost respectable, some are attached to inns, some are just a front room in a house. But all taverns share a truth. They gather people who do not want to be alone in the dark. They gather people who want to feel their day dissolve, and alcohol helps with that. Ale is common, often safer than water, because boiling and brewing kills some dangers. People might not understand that clearly, but they know the pattern. They know that ale makes fewer stomach pains than a bad well, so ale becomes every day. Not always strong, sometimes thin, sometimes sour, sometimes sweet, sometimes inconsistent, but always there. Wine exists too, more in some regions than others, more for the wealthy, but also for the ordinary when it is local, when it is cheap, when it is watered down. Spirits exist in later periods more strongly, but the idea is the same. Drink changes the body, drink warms the chest, drink softens the mind, drink makes a hard day feel farther away. That is why taverns fill. And that is also why trouble begins there. Not because people are evil, because people are human, and tired, and hungry, and proud, and carrying small injuries in the heart. A tavern gives those things a place to spill. A joke lands wrong. A glance feels insulting. A shoulder bump becomes a challenge. A debt is mentioned. A rumour is repeated. A man drinks too fast and becomes brave. A man drinks too slow and is mocked. A man talks about honour, and then honour demands a performance. The first stage of trouble is always the same. Voices rise slightly. Someone stops laughing. A circle forms. Not intentionally, it just happens. People sense conflict the way dogs sense thunder, and then someone sees a sentence that shall not be taken back. Maybe it is an insult, maybe it is a threat, maybe it is a truth in a small society. Words matter. Reputation matters. If you let an insult stand, You may carry it for years. People may treat you as weak. People may step on you again. So some men respond quickly, too quickly. A fist moves, a mug breaks, a chair scrapes back. The tavern becomes a storm in seconds. But most taverns also have their own systems of control. The innkeeper, the tavern keeper, the owner. He's not only serving drinks, he's managing risk. He knows that violence brings punishment. Violence brings fines. Violence brings attention. Violence brings the watchmen. Violence brings the Lord's men. Violence brings trouble that lasts longer than a spilled mug. So the tavern keeper watches. He watches faces. He watches hats. He watches how people stand up. He watches how quickly they drink. He may step between men early. He may shout. He may threaten to throw someone out. He may actually throw someone out. Throwing someone out at night is not a small punishment. Outside is cold. Outside is dark. Outside is risk. So the threat works. Sometimes it does not. When it does not, the tavern keeper may call the watchman, or the watchman may already be near, because the watchman knows taverns are hotspots. Hotspots of light. Hotspots of noise. Hotspots of trouble. So watchmen patrol near taverns. They listen. They do not always intervene, not unless they must, not unless the conflict threatens to spill into the street, because the street is the town's responsibility. The tavern is partly the tavern's responsibility, but lines blur, because a fight can move fast and a knife can appear fast. Knives exist everywhere, because knives are tools. A knife cuts bread, a knife cuts rope, a knife cuts leather, a knife cuts meat when meat exists, so a knife is normal, as till it is not. That is why tavern trouble is frightening, because it can turn deadly without warning. 1 second it is shouting, the next second it is blood on wood, and then everything changes. The room goes quiet, not immediately, but it shifts, like air pressure shifting. People step back. Someone says a name, someone calls for help, someone runs. The tavern keeper stares at his floor like his own future is there, because his future might be there, in fines, in lawsuits, in revenge. The injured person might be carried out, or left where he fell, depending on severity, depending on fear, depending on whether anyone wants to touch blood. Blood is another kind of night signal. Blood means boundaries are broken. A tavern is supposed to be release, but not that kind of release. Now think about the calmer side of the tavern, because most nights are not fights. Most nights are routine. People drink, they talk, they complain about weather, they complain about taxes, they complain about lords, they complain about the price of bread, they complain about their backs, their knees, their bosses, their neighbours. Complaining is a form of comfort. It is a way to say we are not alone in suffering. There are games, dice, cards, simple board games, betting games. A small coin passes from hand to hand. Sometimes a song begins. Not a beautiful performance. Not always. Sometimes it is rough. Sometimes it's out of tune. Sometimes it is loud enough to cover the sadness in the lyrics. People clap, or stomp, or laugh, or argue about the words. This noise is another kind of light. It fills the room, it pushes the dark back. There is also information. A tavern is a news network. Travellers bring rumours, merchants bring gossip, sailors bring stories, soldiers bring lies, or truths, or both. Someone says a war is coming. Someone says a king is sick. Someone says a new tax will arrive. Someone says bandits are on the road. People listen. They pretend not to care. but they care. Because information is survival. Even if it is inaccurate, even if it is exaggerated, at least it gives the mind something to hold. And holding something is better than floating in the dark. There is also loneliness. The tavern is full, but many people are lonely inside it. A man whose wife died sits near the fire. He drinks slowly. He listens. He does not join. He wants the room's warmth, not the room's conversation. A worker with no family sits, watches, leaves, returns, watches again. A prostitute may move through the space, a quiet business, a negotiated price, a borrowed corner, a small room upstairs if the tavern has one, a fast transaction, a return. This is not romance, it's economy, it is survival, it is the city's hidden side. The tavern contains it all: warmth, noise, information, desire, violence, loneliness, and then, at some point, the tavern closes. Not always at the same hour, but it closes because the night must end, and the morning's labour will come regardless of hangovers. Candles are blown out or turned down. The fire is banked, benches are pushed in, doors are bolted, people spill into the street. This is one of the most dangerous moments. Not because everyone is evil, because everyone is impaired, and because the street is dark. A drunk man walks unsteady. He is loud. He is visible. He is an easy target for thieves, for mockery, for accidents. A drunk man can fall into a gutter. A drunk man can stumble into a cart left parked. A drunk man can miss a step and break an ankle. An ankle break can be a life change. So the tavern's warmth does not follow you all the way home. It ends at the threshold. You step outside. The air hits your face. Cold, sharp, real. The street is quieter than the tavern by a painful amount. You hear your own breathing again. You hear your own footsteps again. Your courage fades a little. Your mind becomes aware again. You pull your coat tighter. If you have one, you walk faster. You watch for the watchman's lantern. You hope to see it. Because seeing it means you're not alone. You reach your door. You fumble with the latch. Fingers numb, heart steady, or not steady. Then the door closes behind you. The tavern's world disappears. The city becomes dark again. And the night becomes what it always was. A place where light is temporary, and where most people survive by going quiet, and going home, and sleeping. Now, if you listen to this slowly, you can feel the tavern like a distant fire, warm, but far away. You do not need to go there. You can simply imagine it. The muffled laughter, the clink of cups, the rise and fall of voices, then the door closing, then the street's hush returning, then your own room, then your own breath, then sleep after the tavern closes, after the last laugh thins out, after the warmth is left behind. So Spike X make, the city feels colder than it was before, not always because the air changed, because your body changed, inside. You were wrapped in sound, wrapped in light, wrapped in other people. Outside, you're wrapped in silence. Silence makes the cold louder, so the first thing you notice is temperature. A chill on your cheeks, a sting in your nose, damp air settling into cloth. Breath turning visible for a moment, then vanishing. You pull your collar up, you tuck your hands in, you tighten what you can tighten, and then you begin to move. A medieval street at night is not the street you see in tourist paintings. It is not bright, it is not safe, it is not wide, it is narrow, it is uneven, it is full of places where water gathers, full of places where waste gathers, full of stones that shift underfoot. I'm full of darkness that looks like it has depth. The buildings lean inward in many towns. Upper floors extend over the street. The roof lines almost meet, which means the sky becomes a thin ribbon overhead. That ribbon can be comforting, like being tucked into a tunnel, or it can be suffocating, like being trapped. It depends on your mind and your memory and what stories you heard when you were young. People learned routes, not the shortest, the safest. They learn which streets have more doors, more families, more chance of help. They learn which streets are too quiet, too empty, too close to walls where someone can hide. They learn where the dogs gather. They learn where drunk men sleep. They learn where the gutter stinks so strongly that you want to hold your breath. They learn where the watchman usually passes. Or which corner is touched by his lantern more often at night. You do not walk randomly. You walk like you are following invisible thread. Now imagine you're on that walk. Your steps sound louder than you want them to. You try to step softly, but the stones are damp. Your shoe slips slightly. The slip makes sound. The sound makes you feel seen. You pause, not for long, just for a breath. You listen. Sometimes you hear nothing, which is not comfort. It is suspense. Sometimes you hear a faint sound, a drip from a roof, a mouse in a wall, a distant cough. You keep going. Your eyes try to adjust. They do. A little, slowly. Shadows still dominate, but shapes begin to separate. You can see the edge of a doorway. You can see the outline of a barrel. You can see the pale line of the gutter. You look down often, because the street itself is dangerous. A broken plank, a loose stone, a puddle that hides depth, a pile of waste you do not want on your shoe. At night, injury is expensive. A twisted ankle is not a small inconvenience. It is lost labour. It is pain that lasts. It is a family that must carry your work, so you watch your feet. But watching your feet means you see less of what is ahead. So you lift your gaze again. You scan, not like a soldier, like an animal. Where are the corners? Where are the recessed doorways? Where are the alleys that open like mouths? A city has many mouths, a gap between two houses, a narrow lane to a courtyard, a stairwell leading down, a passage under an overhang. In the day, these mouths are ordinary. At night, they feel like invitations for fear. You keep your pace steady. Steady pace is a defence. If you go too fast, you look scared. If you look scared, you look like prey. If you go too slow, you look distracted. If you look distracted, you look like prey too. So you aim for normal. Normal, calm, unbothered. This is performance. At night, everyone performs safety. Now you hear something. A footstep behind you. It might be your echo. Streets can echo. Walls are close. Sound bounces strangely. A step can return as another step, but you do not assume. You listen again. There. Another sound. A soft scrape. A breath. Your body tightens. Not fully, but enough. You do not turn immediately. Turning can be a challenge. Turning can be a mistake. You move to the side, a little closer to a wall. You pretend it is because the street is narrow, not because you are afraid. You quicken your pace, slightly, only slightly. If the sound behind you also quickens, that is information. You listen. The sound changes, it slows, it pauses, it fades. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was someone else going to their own door. Maybe it was the wind. But the fear remains for a while. Because fear does not vanish instantly. It lingers like smoke. Now imagine a different sound. The watchman's call. A distant voice, a phrase carried down the street, a rattle clacking softly. This sound is comforting for a reason. It suggests order. It suggests that the night is not entirely lawless, that someone is moving through it with purpose. You may not know the watchman personally, but you know his role. Role is more important than person. A role can be trusted. A role is predictable. So you listen, and you move toward that sound. Not openly, not obviously. But your feet choose the streets that lead nearer. This is how the city's night system guides people, like unseen rails. Now you pass a closed shop. The shutters are tight. The door is barred. There is no light. But you can smell something. Old fruit, wet wood, spilled brine. It is faint. But the night makes smell stronger too. You pass a stable. You smell animals. You hear a horse shift. You hear a chain clink. Animals are strange at night. In the day, they're useful. They are seen. They are managed. At night, they become more like wild creatures again, even if they are domesticated. A horse can spook. A dog can growl. A pig can squeal in a way that sounds like a human scream. These sounds can shake you. A person in the dark hears a scream and cannot immediately locate its meaning. So you keep moving. You pass a gutter. You hear water, or you hear thick liquid. You smell rot. You step over it. You do not look into it. Looking into a gutter at night is like looking into a mouth. You do not want to imagine what is inside. You pass a church. If the moon is out, you see the church's outline. Dark, heavy, calm. Sometimes a church has a faint glow. Not always, but sometimes. A candle near an altar, a lamp kept for devotion. That small glow can feel like a star. It can calm the mind. It can also make the darkness around the church feel deeper. Because light creates contrast. Contrast creates drama. The night is already dramatic enough. Now you reach your own street. The street where you know every stone. The street where you know which house has the loud dog. Which house has the creaky door. Which house has the neighbour who talks too much. Familiarity softens fear, but it does not remove it. Because the night does not care what you know. The night hides things anyway. You approach your door. This is another dangerous moment, because to open your door, you must stop moving. You must use your hands. You must focus on the lock. You must become still. Stillness is vulnerability, so you prepare. You check behind you. Quickly. A glance, not a stare. You place your body so the wall is behind one shoulder, so no one can come from that side. You take out the key, if you have one. Not everyone does. Some doors use bars from inside, some use wooden latches, some use locks that only the landlord controls. If you have a key, it is small, it is precious. You do not want to drop it. Dropping a key at night is terrifying. It falls. It makes a tiny sound. It disappears into shadow. Your heart drops with it. So you grip it hard. You find the hole. Your hands are cold. The metal bites your fingers. You turn. The lock resists. It always resists a little. Then it gives. That small give is relief. You slip inside and you close the door fast, not slamming. Slamming draws attention, but firmly, completely. Then you slide the bar, or you add another bear, or you push bench against the door, depending on the house, depending on fear, depending on habit. Now you are inside. Inside is not bright. It is not warm yet, but inside is yours. The air smells like your life, like smoke, like cloth, like food, like people in the dark. You can still find things, because you have learned the room by touch. You know where the bench is. You know where the jug is. You know where the bed straw is. This is another kind of the map. A touch map. You move quietly, because others may be asleep. You sit, or you lie down. Maybe you light a candle for a moment, if you can afford it, if you need it. Maybe you do not. Maybe you just let the darkness hold you. Your breathing slows. Your heart slows. The fear from the street fades, not instantly, but gradually, because you are behind wood, behind stone, behind habit, outside. The watchman keeps walking, outside. The tavern is now dark, outside. The street belongs to rats and wind, and the gutter's hidden river, inside. The world shrinks. A small room, a small family, a small circle of warmth. That shrink is comforting, because big spaces hold unknowns. Small spaces hold knowns. So you let your body sink into the familiar. You let your thoughts become less sharp. You let the day dissolve, and you let the night do what it always does. It covers the city. It quiets the streets. It pulls people into sleep. Slowly. Gently. One breath at a time. When the door closes, the city becomes far away. Not truly far. A street is only a few steps from your wall. A neighbour's cough can still pass through wood. A dog can still bark outside. A watchman can still call the hour. Sound can still leak into your room like thin smoke. But the feeling changes. Outside feels like a stage. Inside feels like a shell. A medieval home at night is not quiet in the way modern homes are quiet. It is quiet in a different way. It is quiet with living sounds. A baby breathing. A child turning on a straw. A person clearing a throat. A kettle settling after it was moved. A roof beam creaking as temperature shifts. The house speaks softly. It speaks in old materials. Wood expands and contracts. Straw rustles. Clay pots click gently when they cool. Fabric sighs when someone moves. If you listen long enough, those sounds become soothing, because they are predictable. And the mind relaxes when it can predict. Light inside is a choice again. Most families do not keep a flame going all night, not unless they have a reason. A sick child, a woman in labour, a traveller expected, a fear that feels too close. Often they bank the embers, they cover the coals with ash, they place a pot over them, they lower the danger, they keep a little heat sleeping under grey powder. This is like hiding a small animal, a sleeping animal that can work in the... A sleeping animal that can also bite if you are careless, so even at night. People think about fire. Fire is in the centre of the room in many homes, not in the centre of attention, but in the centre of life. Because a medieval room is often one room, one space for cooking, for eating, for mending, for sleeping, for sickness, for death, for birth. Everything overlaps. In the daytime. This overlap is busy. At night, it becomes intimate. People sleep close, not for romance, for warmth, for safety, for lack of space. A bed might be straw on the floor, or a raised platform, or a wooden frame if the family is better off. Blankets are heavy wool, or rough linen, or whatever exists. Sometimes it is not enough. So bodies share heat. A child curls into a parent's side. An old person sleeps nearer to the embers. Couple sleeps with their backs touching because the room is cold. Privacy is thin. Dreams are shared in the same air. The room smells like smoke, always, even if you sweep, even if you try to keep it clean. Smoke is part of the architecture. It stains beams. It darkens rafters. It settles into cloth. It settles into hair. It becomes their home's signature. And at night, when air is still, the smoke smell feels heavier. but it also feels familiar. Familiar smells calm the brain. That is why people can sleep in a smoky room, because it is normal for them, because their body grew inside it. Now think about sound again. Outside, the city has its own soundscape. Inside, the house has a smaller one. A mouse might scratch in the wall. This is common. Mice are never fully absent in medieval homes. They come for grain, they come for crumbs, they come for warmth. People trap them. People chase them. People curse them, but at night, they still exist. A mouse scratching can feel annoying. It can also feel comforting in a strange way, because it means life is continuing, because it means the house is still part of the world. Rats are worse. Rats are bigger. Rats are bolder. If a rat lives near you, you will know it. Because the sound is heavier, and the fear is heavier too. But many families accept even that, because they cannot move, because they cannot rebuild, because the house is the house, and the house is all they have. So acceptance becomes sleep, not because they are calm by nature, because they are tired by necessity. Now think about the last moments before sleep. The modern mind often fills with plans, with tomorrow, with distant worries. The medieval mind does not have that luxury. Tomorrow is already known. Tomorrow is work. Tomorrow is weather. Tomorrow is hunger. Tomorrow is the same. So the mind does not wander far. It stays close. It thinks about simple things. Did we store enough grain? Is the roof leaking? Is the baby's cough worse? Is the neighbour angry with us? Did we hide the small coins well? Will the Lord's man come for dues soon? These are practical thoughts. They do not branch into 5-year plans. They do not branch into fantasies. They sit like stones, heavy, simple, and then sleep comes. Not because problems are solved, because the body shuts down. The body cannot keep carrying the day while awake. It must carry it in dreams instead. Dreams in a medieval home are shaped by the day. A person dreams of fields, of digging, of walking, of chasing an animal, of running from fire, of searching for lost bread, of holding a child. Dreams are not cinematic, they are repetitive like life, and repetition is hypnotic, it pulls you deeper. Now imagine an interruption, a sound outside, a knock, soft, then harder, a dog barking in alarm, a shout in the street, a sudden cough that becomes choking. In a modern home, you might reach for a phone, you might turn on a light, you might call someone. In a medieval home, you have fewer options, you have your ears, your hands, your neighbours, and your courage. A family wakes in pieces. One person lifts their head, listens, freezes. Another person shifts, whispers. What is it? A child whimpers without understanding. Someone reaches for a tool, a knife, a staff, a heavy stick. Someone touches the embers, checks if flame can be woken fast. Light is power. Light reveals. Light scares intruders. Light also makes you visible. So the decision to light a candle is not only about seeing, it is about strategy. If the sound outside fades, the family may stay still. Stillness is a defence. A thief listens too. A thief does not want noise if the house stays silent. A thief may move on to an easier target. So people become statues in the dark. They hold breath. They wait. This waiting can feel endless. But it often lasts only a minute. 2 minutes. Then the sound is gone. Then the family exhales. No one speaks much, because speech can wake fear again. So they lie back down. Sleep returns slowly, not as comfort, as gravity. Now consider sickness. Sickness is common, and the night is when sickness feels louder. A cough in daylight is one sound among many. At night, a cough is the whole room. A child with fever at night feels hotter. The room feels more dangerous. A mother touches a forehead in the dark. She cannot measure temperature. She measures by instinct, by worry. She may whisper a prayer. She may fetch water. She may wake the embers and bring a little warmth. She may send someone for the midwife, or for a healer, or for a neighbour who knows herbs. That person must walk through the night. So the city's night system becomes personal. The watchman, the lantern, the tavern glow, the gate, the street. All of it becomes part of one family's crisis. But most nights, there is no crisis. Most nights, the house holds, the roof stays still, the door stays shut, the embers sleep safely, the baby breathes, the cough calms, the rats stay in their corners. And in those ordinary nights, as the medieval home becomes what it is meant to be, a container for rest. Not perfect rest, not clean rest, not quiet rest, but rest. The kind of rest that allows a person to stand again at dawn. That is all the night needs to do. It does not need to be beautiful. It does not need to be peaceful. It only needs to be survivable. And so the house in the dark becomes a steady thing. A small world, a small rhythm, a small bundle of breathing bodies, if you imagine it, slowly but gently. You can feel the warmth of shared blankets. You can hear the soft creak of wood. You can hear the faint shift of straw. You can smell smoke that is not alarming, just familiar. And as you listen, you can let your own mind follow that rhythm. Breath. Pause. Breath. Pause. The city outside continues, but you are inside. The door is shut. The night is long, and sleep is already reaching for you. Every city has an hour that feels heavier than others, not because the clock says so, but evil people do not live by exact minutes, because the body says so, because the mind says so, because the night deepens into a point where everything seems most fragile. This is the sick hour. It is the stretch of darkness when fires feel more possible, when coughs sound worse, when loneliness feels sharper, when fear has more room to grow. It often comes after midnight, when the tavern is closed, when the streets are mostly empty, when the watchman's lantern seems farther apart, when even dogs settle into uneasy sleep. In that hour, small problems can feel like disasters. A child turns hot, a baby breathes too fast, an old man cannot stop coughing. A woman wakes with pain that is not normal. A man wakes with a cramp that does not release. A cut made during the day begins to throb and swell. A toothache becomes a full body ache. A fever makes the room spin. In the daylight, you might call it inconvenient. In the night, it becomes an emergency. Because the night removes options, the night hides roads, the night closes shops, the night turns distance into danger, and the night makes time feel slower. So a family begins to do what families in history have always done. They watch, they touch, they guess, they try, they pray. A mother places her hand on a forehead, not a gentle touch, a measuring touch. She compares the heat to her own skin. She compares it to memory. She tries to remember how hot it was last time. She tries to remember which fevers ended, or which fevers did not. There is no thermometer. There is only fear. The slow work of deciding what to do next. Water is the first tool. Cool cloth on skin, small sips, a damp rag, a bowl placed close. But water itself can be risky. Bad water can worsen sickness. So the choice of water matters. Boiled water is safer. But boiling requires fire. Fire requires waking embers. Waking embers requires light. Light requires candle or lamp, or patience in darkness. Everything is linked. Then there are herbs, not magical herbs, practical herbs. A household might keep dried bundles hanging from beams or stored in small sacks. Mint, sage, yarrow, chamomile, garlic, onion, wormwood, whatever grows nearby, whatever has been passed down through a habit. Some of these help, some do nothing, some harm if used wrong. People do not know chemistry. They know experience. They know what their grandmother did. They know what their neighbour swears by. They know which taste usually comes before relief, so they boil herbs, or chew them, or grind them, or mix them with honey if they have honey. They make the sick person swallow, gently, or forcefully, depending on fear. They speak softly, because a sick room at night is already full of tension. Soft voice is another medicine. A calm voice tells the body, we are not alone, we are not helpless, we are doing something, even if the medicine is weak, even if the sickness is strong. Then there is the question, do we call someone? Do we send someone into the night? This is the hardest decision, because sending someone means risk. Boy may be sent because he can run, but a boy can also be harmed. A boy can also get lost. A boy can also panic. A man may be sent because he can fight, but a man can also be attacked by a group. A man can also be accused of theft if he is seen at night. A man can also be stopped by a watchman who does not recognize him. A woman may be sent because she knows the midwife, but a woman walking at night can be targeted, can be judged, can be blamed. So families choose based on their map of fear. If the sickness looks mild, they wait. If the sickness looks sharp, they act. Sometimes they act too late. Sometimes they act too early and waste resources, but doing nothing is also a decision, and doing nothing can kill. So the household moves. Someone wakes the embers. They stir ash gently. They expose a small red glow. They feed it with a thin piece of wood. Not too fast, not too strong. So they do it carefully, because a fire that grows too fast can fill the room with smoke, and smoke can worsen a sick person's breathing. So fire must be controlled. Light is lit, a candle, maybe a short candle, maybe a precious candle. The flame appears. The room changes instantly. Now the sick person's face is visible. The eyes, the lips, the sweat on skin, the trembling of hands. Visibility can be frightening, because now you see the truth. But it can also be relieving, because now you can act with more accuracy. A bowl is brought, a cloth is warmed, a blanket is adjusted, a child is held upright to breathe. Small corrections, small acts. This is what most care is. Not miracles, maintenance. Then, if the household chooses, someone leaves. The door opens, a wedge of cold air enters, the night smell comes in. Damp stone, smoke from other houses, rot from gutters, the faint scent of river. The person steps outside. The door closes again. Inside, the family listens to silence. Outside, the runner listens to the street. This is the night walk in its most urgent form, not from tavern, from fear. The runner moves faster than normal, but not too fast. Too fast means slipping. Too fast means noisy steps that draw attention. So the runner becomes focused. Corner, wall, alley, open space, church silhouette, market square, bridge. They follow familiar landmarks, even in darkness. They search for the midwife's house. A midwife often lives in a place known by many, because many have needed her. The runner knocks, not softly, not politely, urgently. The midwife wakes. She has done this before. She sits up, she listens. But she decides quickly. If the voice outside sounds wrong, she may refuse. She may ask a neighbour to confirm. She may demand a name. Because midwives are vulnerable too. They carry knowledge, they carry supplies, they carry value, and the night can take value. So trust matters. If she trusts, she moves, she gathers cloth, she gathers herbs, she gathers a small lamp if she has one. She wraps herself in wool. She ties hair back, she steps into the cold. Her body may ache, her eyes may sting with sleep, but she goes anyway, because this is her role, and roles are what keep a society from collapsing. Now. Imagine her walking through the same narrow streets, but different. She does not look at tavern corners. She looks at puddles. She looks at the sky. She listens for dogs. She listens for trouble. Her mind is not drunk. Her mind is sharp. She may carry a staff, not for attack, for balance, for distance, for authority. People respect midwives in a strange way. They fear them. They need them. They sometimes blame them when things go wrong. So the midwife walks with the weight of that. She arrives. The door opens. Warmth spills out. Light spills out. Inside, the sick hour becomes a small theatre of care. Hands move, cloth moves, water moves, herbs move. The midwife touches the patient. She reads with her fingers. Temperature, pulse, tension, breath. She listens to sound. The sound of lungs. The sound of swallowing. The sound of a baby crying. The sound of a woman moaning. She decides what is normal, what is dangerous, what might be reversible. Her knowledge is not modern, but it is real knowledge, built from repetition, built from loss, built from memory of many nights like this. Sometimes she can help, sometimes she can only witness. That's the hardest part of old medicine, often. You can do everything right and still lose. So the midwife brings not only herbs, she brings a kind of steadiness. A person's panic can kill as fast as fever, because panic wastes strength, because panic steals breath, because panic makes the body fight itself. So steadiness is medicine. In the sick hour, a calm voice is precious. Sometimes the sick hour ends with relief. A fever breaks. Sweat cools, breathing slows, the sick person sleeps, the household exhales, sometimes it ends with grief. Breathing slows in the wrong way, eyes dull, hands cool, a person becomes still. Then the household changes shape, not dramatically, quietly, because there is no time for drama. There is only the next step. Cover the body, call the priest, wake the neighbours, prepare. But most sick hours do not end in death. Most end in survival, not because people are strong, because bodies sometimes recover, because illness sometimes passes, because the night does not always take. So the sick hour becomes part of life, part of memory. People wake in the morning, tired, eyes gritty, hands aching. But the sun is up, the city is louder again, work begins, and the emergency becomes another story told softly later. Last night, we thought we would lose him. Last night, we ran for the midwife. Last night. The fever burned like fire, and then it did not, and we are still here. That is the rhythm. Night threatens. Morning returns. The city continues. Now. If you are listening to this slowly, you could let the sick hour feel distant. You can imagine the candle, the bowl, the cloth, the midwife's footsteps fading down the street. You can imagine the moment when the fever breaks, when the room exhales. That exhale can become your own, slow, long, quiet, and as the city's sick hour resolves, your own mind can loosen, because you are safe in this moment, because you are only listening, because the story is carrying the worry for you, so you can drift deeper into the dark, where the night is no longer threat, only a soft blanket, only a long breath, only sleep. Every night in the old city ends the same way, not with a victory, not with a celebration, not with a clear moment when everyone agrees, "Knowles, we are safe." It ends the way most hard things end, by fading. The darkness loosens its grip slowly. At first, you do not see light. You feel a change. The air shifts, the cold becomes less sharp, or sometimes it becomes sharper, in that last hour before sunrise, when the night uses its final strength. Then the sky begins to thin, not bright, not yet, just thinner, a black that becomes dark blue, a dark blue that becomes grey, a grey that becomes a pale wash behind rooftops. This is the first sign, and it reaches the body before it reaches the eyes. People stir, not because they want to, because routine pulls them, because the day is waiting, like a job that does not forgive lateness. In a small house, the first person to wake may be the one who carries the most. A mother, a father, an older child. They open their eyes in the dim. They do not lie there thinking about dreams. They think about tasks. Water, fire, food, animals. Just at the fields. They shift their weight. They sit up. They listen. They check for the simplest proof that the night did not break anything. No shouting outside. No smell of smoke. No banging at the door. No silence that feels wrong. Then they move. The embers are woken. Ashes brushed aside gently. Red glow appears. Thin wood is fed. The fire breathes again. This moment is small, but important. It is the moment the household reclaims control. Fire means warmth. Fire means cooking. Fire means life. So the first flame of morning feels like a restart. A pot is placed. Water is warmed. A crust of bread is found. A bowl is filled with thin soup if soup exists. Children wake slowly. Their bodies heavy. Their air rough. Their eyes half closed. They complain softly. Or they do not complain. Because complaining changes nothing. They put on the same clothes. Clothes that smell of smoke. Clothes patched many times. They step into the morning. Outside, the city wakes in layers. First, the animals. A rooster calls, a dog shakes itself and trots, a horse stamps, a cart donkey brays. Then, the tools. A door opens, a bucket hits stone, a broom scrapes, a wheel creaks. Then, the voices, low at first, like the city is clearing its throat. A greeting, a short argument, a woman calling a child, a man cursing a stiff joint. Sound returns, and sound brings comfort, because sound means normal. Normal means survival. A city before electricity does not have a dramatic sunrise, not in the streets. The streets are too busy too quickly. But the light does change the meaning of everything. A corner that felt dangerous becomes ordinary. A shadow that felt like a person becomes a barrel. A sound that felt like a threat becomes a cat. Daylight corrects imagination. It shrinks fear. And people feel this physically. Shoulders lower, breathing deepens, eyes widen. The body stops listening so hard. The body stops preparing for ambush. That is the gift of dawn, not romance. Relief. Now the night workers begin to disappear. The watchman ends his route, or continues until a replacement arrives. His feet ache, his eyes burn, his hands smell of oil and cold metal. He may not be thanked, but he knows he did his part. The gatekeeper relaxes. He hears the first knocks. He hears the first carts lining up. He begins the ritual of opening. Bars lift. Chains rattle. Wood groans. Light spills through the gap. The city's throat opens again. Ballags. The baker finishes the last batch. Bread cools in rows. The smell begins to drift into the street. This smell is a morning signal too. It tells people. Food exists. Today will start. The cleaners finish scraping. Their piles are moved, or left in designated places. The street looks slightly less like decay. Not clean, but functional. Everything returns to function. That is the medieval goal. Not comfort. Function. Now think about what the night leaves behind. It leaves small evidence. A puddle that was not there yesterday. A mug shard outside a tavern. A smear in the gutter. A door that is slightly ajar. Bruise on someone's face. A new cough in someone's chest. A rumour. A whisper. A story. People notice these things while moving. But they do not stop long. Because stopping is expensive. Work begins again. The fields pull. The workshops pull. The kitchens pull. The Lord's demands pull. The church bells pull. Time is divided again. Not by a clock, by obligations, morning prayer, if the household is pious. Morning chores, always. Feeding animals, carrying water, mending, loading carts. Children are assigned tasks again. No ceremony, no childhood. A boy runs with a message. A girl carries a bucket. A younger child gathers sticks. The day has no patience. And yet, the night still matters. Because the night is the only time that is not full of public labour. It is the time when the body repairs itself. It is the time when the mind forgets a little. It is the time when fear becomes dream and then fades. So people protect the night. They close their doors. They bank their fires. They ration their candles. They build their lives around darkness now at dawn. They do not celebrate the night ending. They do not clap. They do not say, "We defeated it." They simply accept the new day. Because another night will come again. Always. The cycle is the only certainty. Day, work, dusk, closing, night, listening, sleep, then dawn again. This cycle is so strong that it becomes a lullaby. Even if life is hard, the cycle is familiar, and familiarity can be calming, now as you listen. You can imagine the pale light spreading. You can imagine the city exhaling. You can imagine shutters opening one by one, like eyelids. You can imagine the watchman finally turning toward his own bed. You can imagine the last candle stub saved for later. You can imagine bread smell, warm, gentle, simple. Oh, and you can let that dawn light touch your mind too. Not as a signal to wake, as a signal that the story has carried you through the dark. That nothing in your room demands action. That the night can end quietly. That you can remain where you are, safe, still, breathing. And if sleep has already come, it can stay. Because even in history, even in hardship, the night often ends without disaster. Most nights end with survival. Most nights end with silence turning into morning, and that gentle return is enough. So you let the city wake in your imagination, and you let yourself drift even deeper, past the last lantern, past the last watchman's call, into the soft place where stories fade and rest begins.